In the early 1980s, the average monthly cable TV bill was $8. $8 got you 57 channels. 57 channels and nothing on. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, or story from our lives.
Season 16, Chapter 13.
Streaming.
We've got to talk about streaming. Streaming used to be known as watching TV. Today it's called streaming. And frankly, I don't think the system is really working for us. But before I get to all that, the average cable bill was about $8 a month in 1980, and it was in 1982 that Bruce Springsteen, no less, wrote and released his song 57 Channels and Nothing On. According to Google's AI overview, and I can't believe I'm quoting AI here, but here goes, quote, Bruce Springsteen's 57 Channels and Nothing On is a song about man's existential crisis and his inability to find meaning in his material success, even with a seemingly endless selection of television channels. The lyrics explore the narrator's feeling of disconnection and emptiness, despite his material possessions and the lack of communication with his loved one. Unquote. Yeah, I guess. But talk about a song that didn't age well. Springsteen still tours. I mean, he's an iconic, exalted rock living legend. I'm sure he still plays Born to Run, Hungry Heart, and Thunder Road at all his shows. But 57 channels? I bet there's no one there yelling out requests for that oldie. You see, back in that day, in order for the lyrical genius that was Springsteen to best express his feeling of endless television channel selection, the number he picked was 57. 57. That was huge. Ridiculous. 57. Can you imagine? 57 channels and nothing on. 57 was the same number as the variety of Heinz products. That is just too much for any one person. In fairness to the boss, that was a huge number. It spoke to the demographic that grew up on 2 channels, maybe 3. 57 would be unfathomable. How unfathomable? Well, as unfathomable as someone today thinking that 57 channels is a high number. That's how unfathomable. And that's the thing about being a certain age, like, well, Bruce's age, or my age. You have 1 foot each in 2 different worlds. The world that was and the world that is. Age doesn't necessarily give you perspective. But generally at a point in your life, you can look back at the world that was and scarcely believe that you're living in the world that is. Whereas people who grew up in the world that is barely believe you could exist in the world that was. You know what I mean? Here's an example. My ex-father-in-law passed away in the 1990s in his 90s. He was born before the Wright brothers ever flew a plane. As a kid, he would have read about that in a newspaper, and as a teenager, he would begin to see rickety biplanes flying by. So I always asked him how he felt sitting in front of a television in July of 1969 watching Man on the Moon. He went from, if God had meant man to fly, to space travel in his lifetime. How does that feel? Well, he was impressed for sure, but I just couldn't fathom what that would be like. Yeah, it was unfathomable until recently. See, I get it now. My 1 foot is still in this old world of 1 telephone bolted to a wall and 1 clunky TV with 2 channels. And my other foot is in this world, this, whatever this is, world. Technology, connectivity, and communication is our Wright brothers to the moon in 1 lifetime. It happened. You know what else happened? The actual fathoming. I now have a better understanding of the fathoming, unlike the old days when we just couldn't fathom things. I think now today we understand that all you have to do is fathom it, and then one day it will be. Too heavy? Too much? So what does all this have to do with streaming? Well, I'm going to get to that in my usual roundabout and verbose way. Because you see, first I'm speaking with that foot that is in the world that was. You see, I remember our first TV. First ever. Dad brought it home one night on an impulse. You know, a purchase like that would usually require some family discussion, but not my dad. Dad brought home many things suddenly and on an impulse because he knew a guy, he got a deal, he couldn't pass it up. So suddenly we had a TV. Previous to that, before we even lived in town, believe it or not, once a week we would all pile into the car and drive into town to my aunt, uncle, cousin's house for the entire purpose of watching TV for an evening. They had a TV. Lucky. Wow, they must be rich. Then we had a TV. Soon almost everyone had a TV. Now granted, we live in the mid-prairies in a small town, and I imagine things went a lot faster in the big city. But we had 2 channels. Those channels were broadcast out from high towers at a very high frequency for free. The only thing we had to do was buy the receiver, the television. Everything else was free. Well, maybe you also had to buy an antenna for better reception, some weird contraption fastened to the roof of your house, or these aerials that just went on the top of your TV set. We called them rabbit ears. They didn't really look that much like rabbit ears. But hey, does your mouse look like a mouse? Kinda. So yeah, kinda seemed like rabbit ears. And it was a lot easier than having to go up on the roof every time you changed the channel. That is the world I came from. And it seems like ancient times, long, long ago. Well, it was and it wasn't. But I'll tell you something right now, kids. I've seen it all. Many people have. Some of them walk among you. From our very first TV with rabbit ears to a slightly bigger TV. That one, like the neighbor's station wagon, came with wood paneling, while Mom sprayed Pledge on the fine walnut cabinet. Dad went up on the roof with the antenna. Luxurious. Still 2 channels, but wow. Then we moved to the city. Not only a slightly bigger TV, but much more wood. 3 channels, a fuzzy 4th one, depending on the weather. And in color.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
What's that UHF button for? Well, that's ultra high frequency, as opposed to VHF, the very high frequency. Very is high, but ultra is higher. Are there any channels there? No, not really. By the way, technically, today all broadcast TV is digital UHF. Also, side note, I recommend you YouTube search a short film called The Colorless Man. It's under 15 minutes, totally worth watching. But yeah, a color TV. Meanwhile, phones started to come in a variety of colors, also shapes and styles. And they were push button. Randy's family has an answering machine. Oh my God, touch-tone phones and color TV. We live in the future. Again, once you shelled out for the TV, which some called the boob tube, and maybe an antenna, everything else was free. Bonanza, Bewitched, MASH, they were free. They paid for it all by selling commercials. Some of the commercials were just as catchy and entertaining as the shows. An entire first generation of television was based on this idea. You buy a TV, the rest is free, you get commercials. That's how it was. And we got along fine. Then came cable. Now, cable had been around for decades. Direct wires that ran to remote areas that had poor signal reception. Hey, even the Hicks had to have TV. But then it was like, what if we just ran cable to everyone's house? Then we could charge them for the cable. And, get this, we'll also have cable channels. Oh, geez, what are those? Well, they will not have commercials. Well, how will they make a living? Well, you pay for the channel. You pay for the cable. But TV is free. Commercial TV is free, but commercial-free TV is not. Okay, I think I got it. We paid. We paid for the privilege. And because there was no dial, the limited VHF, theoretically, you could have as many channels as you want. Before you knew it, we had 57 channels, and nothing was on. Suddenly there were so many channels that many of them just couldn't sustain themselves. People didn't want to pay for all of the channels. I can't watch 57 channels, and I can't afford all of those. So guess what? Cable television began selling commercials. But I thought that it was, I thought it was free because I'm going to pay for it. And then no. So we still paid for the channel, and they still sold ads. Sound familiar, kids? Mind you, those cable shows seem to be a little bit better, edgier, more adult. Ooh, she took her top off. Ooh, he said a swear. What a show. I can't believe this is TV. You know what else happened in the early 80s? Ronald Reagan got elected, and he deregulated much of the TV advertising and marketing industry. This meant that advertisers could market and sell as much as they wanted, whenever and to whomever they wanted, for as long as they wanted. This gave birth to the infomercial. This wasn't a show with ads. The ad was the show. The show was a long ad. Hey, have you seen that new Thigh Master show? I can't wait to see what happens next. Some of those shows even ran on cable. Concurrently to this, VCRs became commonplace. You can record a show on a tape cassette. Even when you're not there, watch it whenever you want. Sounds complicated, but I guess we could figure it out, right?
You're saying I can record something I'm not even watching? Yes, that's the point. You don't even need a TV to record. How would I see it? Well, to see it, you need a TV. But
shut up. Just shut up. He doesn't get it. He'll never get it. It's been 4 hours. The cows can tape something by now. Forget about it, please.
So you're saying I don't have to be home on Thursday night at 9 to watch Cheers, that if I properly program this device here, I can watch it the next morning at breakfast or even a week from now. The term spoiler alert, previously used when revealing a plot twist or an ending for a movie you hadn't seen yet, was now part of the day-to-day talk about television. You see Cheers last night when Diane, shut up, I've taped it, I haven't watched it yet. And hey, if you could run your own video cassettes of shows you taped, wouldn't it be a good idea to sell or rent tapes that already had shows on them? Even movies? Bingo, Blockbuster. And we all also had the local little video rental store with the adult section behind the curtain at the back. I remember running into a neighbor of mine there one time, and I was embarrassed that he caught me in there until I thought, hey man, you're in here too. Be kind. Rewind. And we toyed with the video disc, laser discs, beta, but VHS won out, eventually replaced with DVDs, which were even better quality, easier to handle, no rewind hassle. But you couldn't record on them, so you also had to hold on to the VCR for that function. And we still called the whole thing watching TV, but with all these options, we watched TV differently. And we rode along on that system for a long time as well. Before I get to the next big change, I also want to say that within that cable system, for a while we went with satellite dishes, either the big ones that took up half the backyard, or the little ones that clipped onto the balcony. I don't have cable, I have a satellite dish. Somehow I avoided those, and thankfully they just went away. So the next big disruptor, the paradigm shift, Netflix. Netflix basically started out as a more convenient Blockbuster. In 1997, it was a DVD rental company with the innovation of one flat fee membership. And with that, you got unlimited rental of movies and shows on DVD, mailed or couriered to your house. Heck, I think my convenience store even had a Netflix vending machine for a while. And if you're wondering, Netflix founders actually envisioned a future as movies, the flicks, available on the internet, net. But it was the 1990s. The technical limitations meant they had to start out as a delivery model for physical DVDs. By 2007, though, they began to offer online streaming. Computers had better chips, greater capacity, high-speed functionality. More satellites went up, allowing for faster communications, the uploads, the downloads. And speaking of high speed, it all happened really fast. Blockbuster and that little local space with the curtain at the back, they all went by the wayside. Streaming was where it's at. Streaming was kind of like early cable. I'll just pay the flat fee, and then all the shows would be commercial-free. Again, we changed the way we watched TV. So, of course, everyone else had to get into the business. Before we knew it, 57 streaming channels and nothing on. Well, actually, no, there was a lot on. but could you afford it all? Conventional content providers, like broadcast TV, movie studios, etc., created their own streaming services to compete with Netflix. Netflix began creating their own content. Before all of this, if you made a movie, you could not control distribution. You had to deal with the movie theater owners. Some people think it should still be like that. But now people like Disney and Paramount said, well, we can control product and distribution. Apple was only a tech giant, but gee, they had access to a lot of devices. They should start acquiring content and streaming it. Apple TV. Amazon was not really a tech company at all, but they had a huge database, so they should have a streaming service. Prime Video, Apple Plus, Disney Plus, which also handled ABC Television, Paramount Plus, which controlled CBS, NBC's Peacock, CBC Gem, Bell Media Crave, Time Warner Discovery, BritBox, DirecTV, Sling. They all stream. Some of them also have a music service. And some even live stream, now live events as they happen, concerts, sports, all for one flat fee. For each service, each one. At least with cable, there was usually one cable company that you went with, and you could bundle the channels. Like in the 80s, you didn't pay $8 a month per channel, 8 times 57. Today, you can't really bundle streaming services yet. So at about $15 per streaming service, you can't possibly afford them all. Too many channels. Even they understand that, so guess what now? They offer a lesser fee, a smaller membership charge. But now you'll have to watch commercials. Incidentally, all of this started because we were raised to believe that commercials were bad. I never thought commercials were bad, just the bad commercials were bad. But now, in many ways, history is just repeating itself. My one foot in the world that is talking to the foot in the world that was and saying, hey, don't things seem familiar? Deja vu, man. And the other foot is going, hey, man, keep it down, I was asleep. So, how many channels? Well, so many channels out there. Dozens and dozens of streaming services. Did I also mention there's about 50 million bona fide influencers out there? These are people who have their own channels on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all of the above. Add to that about 6.5 million podcasters in the world. A lot of them stream video too. And there's about 1.5 billion websites. You know what a website is? Well, it's a channel on a screen that has content. That's not even mentioning all the social sites with everything they have. How many channels is all of that? Well, 1.5 billion plus 6 million plus 50 million. Here are the two. Well, it's higher than 57. So much content out there. So then people just began to cut the cable. And where do we watch all this content? A screen. I have this big one that last Black Friday, Walmart said it was a TV. But you can also have a desktop, a laptop, an iPad, a notebook, and a phone, all of which will provide you all of this streaming content. So what is watching TV today? No one knows. It's just called screen time. It's just not working for me. I mean, I want to watch Ted Lasso, but I don't want to get Apple TV. So I guess once a week I could just pile into the car and drive to my cousin's house because they have it there. Of course, people share their access codes and passwords, basically cheating the system, but they are starting to police that now. I wanted to watch the miniseries Cheers reboot, but I didn't have Peacock. I wanted to see this movie about the making of The Godfather, but it's only on Paramount Plus. I ordered Disney Plus just to watch the Beatles movie, and then I canceled it after a month. I do have Netflix, but I don't even know if I watch it enough to justify the monthly fee. There's so much out there that there's even apps like Rocket Money that keep track of all your subscriptions, even TV or music or food or wine clubs, and they can cancel them for you and even apply for a refund. I mean, why should you have to do that when an app can handle it? I think a better system would be no membership fee. If I want to watch Ted Lasso on Apple TV, then let me just pay for that. Or instead of $15 a month, how about $15 a year, which gets me some content with commercials, and then you can charge me separately for other shows. I'll just get my monthly streaming bill down to about $8, and occasionally I'll treat myself and go out to a movie, except it'll be in my own house. Old foot, new foot. And if you haven't noticed, what I've just described is the old way of watching TV, only with different verbiage and a different billing system. I think there's any number of pay models that would be better for the consumer than the one that exists today. And there's better content out there than there ever was. But the system isn't working. I can't afford all the streaming services. And frankly, because I grew up in the world that was, I'm tired of being the curator of my own content. Every day, it's exhausting. I have this food analogy that I think works here, because there's lots of different ways to get your daily food and nourishment. Okay, most people, they shop for various ingredients, they bring them home, they prepare them, and assemble them, then consume them. That's like the 80s and 90s with the cable and the VCRs and the Blockbuster. Occasionally, you all pick a place you like, you go there, and have food served to you. That's like going out to the movies. Or you could just stay at home, order in, prepared food comes to your door, all you have to do is eat it. That's today, and streaming. There's always an IV, intravenous. That's that tube you just stick into your arm. You do nothing. You just lie there. The tube pumps all the food and nourishment you need right into your body. That was television in its original form. TV was IV. That was the television I grew up with. Don't do anything. Don't prepare. Don't think. Just sit there and let it pump everything into your system. I sometimes miss that world. I recall things I learned from TV that I wasn't really interested in, but it was on TV and nothing else was on. So I watched it and I learned.
The bark beetle carries the worm to its nest, where it will feed its young for up to 6 months. In the spring, the larvae hatch and the cycle begins again.
What we really need is Star Trek's food replicator for TV. You just think of what show you want, and it appears in your brain. No screen required. No hardware necessary. Crazy? Impossible? Hey, all you have to do is fathom it. One day, it will be.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.